Star Trek, the next generation. Your love throughout the nation. You're my favourite show. Was in every episode you're lucky. You don't have to wait for buses. You just step into the transporter and off you boldly go. Mr. Wall's my favourite person.
Welcome to the bOrgCast. We are the Org, and our purpose is to assimilate seasons 2 to 7 of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Hello, friend!
Hello!
We're back!
Yay!
Yay! It's going to be a game of two halves, to use a football cliche, I suspect. We kick off with Contagion!
Next time on Star Trek The Next Generation. Destroy that probe! An alien force is programming the Enterprise for self-destruction,
We're sitting on a bomb that can go off any second.
leaving the ship defenseless against an enemy attack.
They're preparing to fire photon torpedoes.
Sir, the shields aren't responding.
Now, the crew faces a countdown to disaster on Star Trek The Next Generation.
So, Contagion is an excellent episode. It starts with an actually good teaser!
Yeah!
I think the first time in Season 2, pretty much. Picard is off to rescue his colleague, Captain Varley, who's captain of the sister ship Yamato, last seen in, Where Silence Has Lease, that really awful story, where it just appeared.
With Nagilum.
Yes, anyway, let's not remind ourselves of that. He's reporting malfunctions, dangerous malfunctions on his starship. And also, he's in the neutral zone, which is obviously not a great place to be when your ship is playing up on you. So, Picard hails him, and there's a nice comment about Picard's antique humour. What do you do? What's a nice captain like you doing in part of space like this, or something like that? It's a really crappy pun, which he calls him up on, basically.
Yeah.
And we find out that 18 engineers have died in
Yeah.
Yamato's shuttle bay, because those really clever shuttle bays they have with the force fields that allows ships to go in and out. You can see out, which looks really cool, but obviously it's clearly something of a danger when the force field fails. So that's pretty grim. Varley tells Picard the Iconians are not a legend, and he's found some dangerous technology, which could be very dangerous in the hands of the Romulans in particular. And then the Yamato blows up.
Yes.
In an excellent bit of effects work. I mean, that's really cool. You see the saucer section drifting off and burning up. It's brilliant stuff. And then the Romulans are in sensor range. And then it's the end of the teaser. It's like, wow, that's like 3 excellent teasers in one. It's awesome stuff.
Very, very good.
So it's obviously somebody had been paying attention finally and giving us a decent teaser. So then we come back after the teaser and we're informed that over 1,000 people lost their lives on the Yamato, which is...
And it was totally unnecessary, because Picard had said, do you want us to evacuate the non-essential crew to the Enterprise? And he goes,
and Varley goes, no, it's
that would be premature.
Yeah,
really?
Clearly not.
In the neutral zone with a fucked up ship, that's premature.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not clever.
No.
And of course a lot of those involve families as well, because these wonderful Galaxy-class ships have loads of families on board. There's a good plan.
Yeah, who thought of that? Like, any country these days would put kids on an aircraft carrier or anything.
Yeah, quite. I mean, I suppose the idea was that they were off for long-term voyages, so that they had to have their families around them, otherwise they might go mad. But
yeah, but then you have long-term voyages under the sea, didn't you?
Yeah, not as long as the Enterprise was out for, theoretically. I don't know. It doesn't work because, you've got the comfort of your family around you, but on the downside, you've got worrying about your family constantly being in danger. So I don't think it works, really.
No.
And they kind of drop it, don't they? I mean, Voyager doesn't have families on board, does it? Trying to remember now. It's been so long since I've seen Voyager, but I can't remember civilians.
No. I
mean, it was a smaller ship, but I think generally they drop the idea of families on board after a while, don't they?
Yeah.
So the question then is, did the Yamato blow up because the Romulans attacked it? And there's a big face-off, very intense face-off between Picard and the Romulan commander, whose name I wrote down somewhere, and I can't find it. Typically, I got the name of the spaceship, but not her name.
Why does that not surprise me?
Well, it's interesting because it's the first Romulan ship to get a name in the series, you see.
Uh-huh.
Oh. Sub-Commander Torres. There we are.
Right.
She doesn't get named till later on, that's why I haven't scribbled it in there. Anyway. So yes, there's basically a bit of a face-off between Picard and Torres, and she tells him to get the hell out of the neutral zone after he tells her the same thing. It's like, no, you get out the hell out of there. No, you get the hell out of the neutral zone. And Picard says, okay, I'll get the hell out of the neutral zone once I've found out why our ship blew up. Which I think is a fair answer, really.
Yeah, and she seems to think so, because...
Yeah, kind of. They sign off at that point, don't they?
Yeah.
But, Worf's pretty paranoid.
But he would be, though.
Yeah, quite. It's in his character, isn't he? But he's convinced the Romulans can now fire when cloaked, which would explain why the Yamato blew up.
Yeah.
And they have one of their conferences, and Geordie's worried that it's a design flaw in the Galaxy-class vessel, which obviously would be incredibly serious for them. Picard reviews Varley's logs. It's quite a lengthy scene, but it's okay. Varley sounds, he's quite an interesting captain, kind of laid back.
Yeah.
Possibly part of the problem. When I did Spaceship of the Day for the Yamato, when it turned up in Where Silence Has Lease, I put my own little fictional bits on there, which Lee from the Black Dogs occasionally added stuff as well, which is really, really cool of him. But I added for that one that Varley had forbidden people from using any firewall technology whatsoever because it slowed down his games of Mass Effect. And he paid the price. So, yes, the review Varley's logs, and Varley mentions that they were scanned by an Iconian probe. And as Picard goes to leave is that his ready room? I never know.
I think it is.
Yes, it's a ready room. The door doesn't open immediately. It makes a funny bleepy noise. Warning. And then...
Missed its cue, obviously.
Missed its cue, yes. Wesley goes to see Picard, and Picard says that archaeology is a hobby of his, which is one of those things that could have been, that's convenient, and never mentioned again. But at least it comes up on a relatively regular basis, doesn't it? It becomes, a built-in part of Picard's character to the point where he ends up sort of dating Vash, doesn't he, in that slightly bizarre way. But that's much later on down the line.
Why is Wesley talking to him and not Troy?
Well, yes, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Because you'd think Troy would be the person you go to see if you're concerned about something, but... it's obviously more dramatic if he goes to see Picard, ultimately, isn't it? And it's kind of a nice scene. I mean, Wesley starts asking questions about the Iconians and stuff, but actually, as Picard realises, he's actually worried, and it turns out he's worried because over 1,000 people just died, which understandably is going to mess with your head, isn't it, really?
Again, why isn't he talking to Troy? That's what she's there for.
It is, but... If you've got a choice between showing a scene between Wesley and Troy and Wesley and Picard, which are you going to go for?
Troy and Picard.
Okay. Have I mentioned this? That Wil Wheaton is a fan of real ale?
No.
I've been following him on Twitter. Kind of sort of perverse sort of way.
Right.
Well, not for perverse reasons. Ooh, no.
No,
not that way.
No, not back to the Wesley Crusher porn again, please.
No, maybe not.
No.
No, he was on Twitter, and I think at the time he was the only Next Gen crew member that was on Twitter, so I thought I'd follow him. And you get an awful lot of tweets, sport-related tweets, bless him, and it's all weird American sport, so I was trying to work out what it was the other day. But also, he's into real ale, which is obviously quite rare for United Statesians, so he's gone up in my estimation now. Quite impressed with that. Then Picard orders some
tea Earl Grey hot.
First time he uses that phrase.
Why that way round? Why doesn't he ask for hot Earl Grey tea? Or
I don't know.
Earl Grey tea hot?
I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with the way the Americans reverse their dates as well. They can't speak properly.
They reverse the dates. They reverse their grammar. Okay.
Do we have any American listeners? We could be in big trouble before the end of this podcast. Damn it! We invented the language. Start that old thing. And he orders a tea Earl Grey hot, and it turns out to be a pot plant in a cup, basically.
Really quite funny, actually.
Yes. So it's really obvious now that the Enterprise is having system failures. Geordie figures out that it's the probe, but doesn't suggest that they abandon ship, which would be the sensible idea at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get to Iconia, and it's been bombarded to death, but there's an energy signal. Then another probe gets launched, and Geordie realises that if the ship allows it to scan them, they're in big trouble. But unfortunately, his communications with the bridge are cut out.
Yeah.
So then he has to rush off dramatically into a turbo lift, which then goes absolutely mental with him in it. Poor chap.
Yeah.
He's thrown around it. There's some really good effects. I don't quite know how
it is really good.
They must have turned the set upside down or something.
Freak the shit out of me. I mean, I find it sort of mildly scary enough going in a normal lift.
Which just goes up and down, but you've got one that can go side to side at high speeds as well.
Oh.
Yeah, I wouldn't step in one of those.
And they're saying...
Forget you've been worried about transporters.
And later on they say Pulaski doesn't trust the turbo lift, and I'm going,
no,
I don't
bloody
blame
surprise!
her!
Yes,
I wouldn't either!
So anyway, he gets the ride of his life, and it ends up at the bridge, and he kind of flies out, bless him, and he's just in time to tell Picard to destroy the probe. They work out that the probe's transmitting an alien program, which has kind of got into the Yamato systems. Of course, that doesn't immediately explain what's wrong with the Enterprise. But of course, by downloading the Yamato log, they've effectively got infected as well. At no point during this episode did they use the word virus, by the way, which is quite interesting. I think this all predates the idea of computer viruses, which is why it seemed like a really cool episode when you first saw it. Possibly now you're going, where's your firewall technology, you know?
Yeah.
But that sort of thing wasn't in general, circulation in those days. I certainly would never have heard of them, although admittedly I am antediluvian, always behind the times by at least 10 years.
Although you can argue, though, that this was such an ancient and such an alien civilization.
Yeah, well, that was exactly what was argued, because Gene Roddenberry actually didn't want the episode made. Because he said that the Enterprise's systems should be Federation computer systems should be so advanced that they won't get affected. And the writer, who was actually a computer expert, worked on the writer's computers, if you see what I mean, in the Star Trek offices, came up with this idea and said, no, actually, if it's advanced enough, even the Enterprise won't be able to deal with it. So you kind of got that exact same reasoning, So, and then Geordie points out that 90% of their systems are automatic, so they're in big doo-doo. Initially, the idea of ordering a cup of tea and getting a pot plant doesn't seem so bad, but the idea of the oxygen suddenly cutting off, or indeed a shuttle bay suddenly blasting its crew out into space, not good. Then we cut to the med bay, and Pulaski is being all stressed.
Yes,
kind of badly, bless her, but not a great acting moment for her. There are all sorts of equipment malfunctions. The beds aren't working properly, and there's a very stressed medical technician guy who can't use the knitter. I think it's obviously talking about knitting together a wound, rather than he's trying to crochet or something.
Actually, it made me think of head lice at the time.
Oh, nice.
Sorry.
Just use the knitter. Yes, you've got knits. Oh, no! And plus he says, use a splint. And he says, what's a splint? Now, pretty stupid. Surely they must be trained in basic medical stuff, just in case they're stuck on a planet somewhere without a fully equipped med bay to sort out problems. So that stretches the imagination a bit.
Yeah.
Then poor old Geordie, he's having a hell of an episode. He then gets electrocuted.
Yep.
And there's a nice interaction between him and Data. It's one of the core. I did a piece today on the Tumblr site about the family aspect of Next Gen, because that's something that's quite distinctive about it in some ways. That particular pairing is one that really grows on you as the series goes by. Picard decides he's going to beam down, and despite Riker's worries about the captain beaming down.
But it makes sense because he knows the archaeology, he knows the civilization.
He's the Iconian expert, so yes, it does make sense. Not so sensible. They risk the transporter to get themselves down.
Why didn't they go in a shuttlecraft?
I suppose you could argue the shuttlecraft would be infected as well.
Yeah, but if it's working its way out from a particular system, the chances of the shuttlecraft yet being affected, I would have thought are fairly remote.
It's hard to say, but I probably trust the shuttlecraft more because there are more systems that, whereas that could go wrong. So it might be a non-important system that goes first, rather than the transporter. That's just one system, and if it goes wrong, you're buggered, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Also with the shuttlecraft, well, let's supposing left becomes right, or the engines stop working. Well, you're still alive in the shuttlecraft. It just isn't going where you want it to go. Whereas,
whilst Picard has left, the Romulans are back. Poor old Riker's in charge, and they're out arming their torpedoes. Oh, tense music starts playing, and the Enterprise can't get its shields up. But then the Romulan warbird then starts turning its weapon systems off.
Yep.
And it starts becoming clear that they've been infected as well. And there's that lovely line from Riker: "Fate protects fools, little children, and ships named Enterprise."
Yep.
And there's another great line after that as well. "If it should become necessary to fight, could you arrange for some rocks to throw at them?"
Yeah.
Because they're trying to fire their phasers and photon torpedoes, but nothing's working.
No. But then it's like shields up, shields down. The shields are up, the shields are down. And Riker's all, I want the shields up. And then Wesley is like, but Commander, if the shields are up, how can we get the away team up? And then it's all dramatic, oh no. And it's like, Riker should have thought of that.
Yeah.
Why is fucking Wesley thinking of that?
Fairly common knowledge, isn't it? Let's face it, yes. And then another probe is launched, this time to look at the Romulan vessel. And Riker gives them a warning and they zap it. Into the Iconian control room, we've got Picard, Worf and Data. And Picard's clearly having a bit of fun here.
He is.
You can see the archaeologist and him really getting interested in it all. It's an okay set. It's a bit shonky in places now. I seem to remember being a lot more impressed with it when I first saw it, but now you can quite clearly see it's a bit... Well, it looks cheap by today's production standards, shall we say.
I did like the look of the actual gateway.
The gateway was good. That was a really good effect.
I thought that was very good.
I
agree
the
about...
whole sort of plastic globe thing.
Yeah,
and the walls looked actually more like something from the original series. In many
also,
ways.
the globe thing just looks something you get out of the gadget shop.
Yes, it does a bit, doesn't it? Back on the ship, and Troy has detected tensions are high. Yes, she's pointed out the obvious yet again, and that it'd be a good idea for Riker to give people something to do, so they relax a bit. So Riker then gives her something to do to get him off her back, I guess.
Yeah.
And she goes off to plan an evacuation, which at least is something useful for her to be doing.
It was more than bloody Varley did, wasn't it?
Well, indeed, yes. Back here on Iconian, Data has managed to translate the local lingo and activates the portal, and we get the glorious portal effect. Of course, the portal reappears later on in Deep Space Nine in the episode To the Death. Do you remember that?
No.
No, I didn't either until I read it on Memory Alpha, and then I had vague memories. It's during the Dominion War arc, I think, yes.
Okay.
But I did have vague memories of it coming back, which is quite a nice bit of continuity. Data gets zapped. Not just Geordi getting zapped, but Data has been as well. And Worf basically is told by Picard to leave with Data through the portal, because one of the things that's appearing on the portal, rather oddly, I can't help feeling, because this portal's supposed to show different places in the galaxy, and this is how the Iconians controlled their empire, just by appearing as if by magic, as the point is made. But the gateway appears on the Enterprise, which is in orbit, and also in the Romulan ship that is in orbit. Which is kind of convenient, let's face it.
I assumed it was intelligent technology, and that one of the ways they had, because in order to send out the probe towards the Enterprise and towards the Romulan warbird, they would have had to have detected it.
Yeah, no, you could argue that. That's fair enough. I'll allow that. So Worf leaves with the stunned Data over his shoulder, pretty much, and Data having explained to Picard first how to basically set off one of the probes, but then override the door control, so he's going to blow it all up so the Romulans can't use the technology.
I do think, though, that override door control being blue, blue, blue was a bit thick, because what if you press blue too often by accident?
Lent on the blue button.
Yeah!
Yeah, that's quite dangerous. And it's also not the most sophisticated control panels ever. There's a big red button, a big amber button, and a big blue button.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Data effectively dies.
Yeah.
Which is kind of vaguely shocking, except you just know he's coming back, obviously.
He restarts.
Reboots, and he's all in the clear now.
Yep.
So it's the old classic, switch it off, switch it on again.
Switch it off, count to 10 and turn it on again.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it does seem a bit cliche now how the problem is solved. But again, it seemed a little more exciting and revolutionary.
Yeah, and nobody kicked him.
No. Bloody Data!
Yeah.
There's a nice scene with Geordi and Riker sort of talking through the nature of how they're going to solve the problem, whilst Data sort of sat there going, excuse me, hello?
Can I help?
And then they reboot the ship,
yeah.
As you do. What if there's a big red button they press around the back of one of the control panels or something?
I assumed it was, that although they didn't show it, I assumed it was rather like the auto-destruct, that on the basis that if you're in the middle of a battle and somebody could reboot your ship, it makes you a bit vulnerable. It was a whole password.
You'd think so. Well, you would hope so, certainly.
Yeah, you would.
Meanwhile, Picard, with having set off the probe and effectively a self-destruct for the Iconian station he's on, then exits and appears on the Romulan ship. Cue field trousers. The Romulan ship's falling apart around him. O'Brien locates Picard and beams him aboard the Enterprise just at the right moment. And Picard sort of appears aboard the Enterprise. Riker gets the message passed on to the Romulans to tell them how to cure their system. And they're off, with Picard making the comment, I can see why you want to keep the away missions to yourself.
Yeah.
So exciting. Life here is so dull. Bit of a cheesy ending. But generally, it's an exciting, action-packed episode with some good effects.
Yep.
Some nice character moments. And it rattles along at a decent rate. Yes, okay, so the solution is a bit pumps. And ultimately, the idea of the Enterprise being affected could or may not be a bit dodgy.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
They downloaded the logs. Picard calls up the logs,
Yep.
reads them,
Yeah, fair enough. That bit isn't so bad. But I mean, generally, it's just a fun, rollicking episode, and it's got Romulans in it, which automatically makes it 100% more cool.
Yeah, it's really good, and I had forgotten that there were any episodes as good as this in season 2.
Mm.
If you'd asked me about this episode and asked me which season was it in, I would have said 3 or 4.
Yeah. The actress who plays the Romulan, Carolyn Seymour, she appears later on in Face of the Enemy as another Romulan. But I always assumed she was the same one, but apparently she's got a different name because they assumed that she was killed at some point for some reason.
Okay.
And she's also in the episode, not the film, First Contact, because there is a Next Gen episode called First Contact with rather less makeup, but I think she's still got something on her head, hasn't she? But there we go. And she appears in various other genre bits and pieces as well. So yeah, great episode.
Yes.
Now we have to move on to the Royale.
Are you not going to get anal about spaceships?
Well, I will put something up on the Tumblr sites about the Romulan warbird Hakona. Hakona Matata. No, because it's our first named Romulan warbird, and warbirds are cool. So that'll go there, but there's nothing really exciting to say about it, other than the fact that it's the first named Romulan warbird. Okay,
not anything about who came up with the design?
I've kind of done that already. You see, the Tumblr site is now giving free rein to my spaceship geek.
So we're dropping that segment, are we now?
Possibly. No, not necessarily, because there's just nothing exciting to say from the fact that it's got a name, which really doesn't deserve a segment of its own. Even I wouldn't go that far.
Okay. It's just that compared to half the other ones you've talked about that looked gobshite, at least this one actually looked nice.
It's not about the look, it's about the points of interest, my dear. And, where models have appeared before or where they crop up later. Of course, the Warbird it crops up again and again, but it's the same standard design. Well, there are two. Actually, later on there's a second design, but we'll get onto that later. You've got that joy to look forward to, because you get the green one and then you get the sort of slightly blue one. You see, you've started me off now. You brought this upon yourself! Plus, you're only delaying it so that we don't have to watch the Royale.
Yeah, this is true.
The Royale with cheese. It's got to be done, though, folks, so we're off to watch it, and we'll come back to you soon.
With more beer.
Definitely.
Next time on Star Trek, The Next Generation.
Seems like we're trapped in here.
Proceed with caution.
A dangerous mission uncovers a secret alien passage.
Welcome to the Hotel Royale.
Where the crew become prisoners in a fictional casino that's all too real.
Lock onto the landing party. Beam them up.
We've got nothing to lock on to, sir.
Now, they must gamble with their lives in a deadly game of survival on Star Trek, The Next Generation.
So the Royale, tell us all about it, Bean. Was that on purpose?
Yeah.
It is slow in parts.
It's just boring. And the trailer, they must gamble for their lives.
Gamble for their lives.
No one's threatening to kill them.
No.
They're just bored shitless.
There is a lack of threat.
As are the viewers.
Come on, tell us all about it.
Right, okay. In the teaser, there is a stray spaceship in an uncharted system.
Do I have to fetch the electrodes?
There's this stray spaceship that nobody understands why it's there. Some Klingon cruiser has seen it, reported it, so the Enterprise have gone to investigate. That in itself would have been interesting. Then there's some bollocks with Picard and Riker about Fermat's last theorem, which was solved in 1995, so you can completely ignore it.
Embarrassing.
Patrick Stewart at some point says Z, even though he is English and Picard is French. Neither of them say Z, so why on earth do they do it? And then Riker's on a transporter pad with a bit of spaceship with NASA on. Have they found Buck Rogers?
In the year 1987, NASA launched the last of America's deep space probes. Aboard this compact starship, a lone astronaut, Captain William Buck Rogers, was to experience cosmic forces beyond all comprehension. In a freak mishap, his life support systems were frozen by temperatures beyond imagination. Ranger 3 was blown out of its planned trajectory into an orbit 1,000 times more vast. An orbit which was to return Buck Rogers to Earth 500 years later.
Yay! Hey, yeah! Now that would have made an awesome episode.
It would have done.
Wow, that would have been so, particularly if it had warmer beering in it.
Can you imagine the conversations between Data and Pookie?
No, actually, I don't think I want to. No, God, all the things to concentrate on. Tweaking. Not Jill Gerard in his manly chest. I'm not sure him and Riker could actually fit on the same screen.
Jill Gerard reminds me of my Uncle Ray. Just don't go there.
Slightly less hairy than Uncle Ray, but yeah.
Yeah, but then the gorilla is less hairy than my Uncle Ray. Who, by the way, is a really nice guy, but incredibly hairy.
And if you listen to the show, Ray, we love you.
Oh, come on, what are the chances?
That would be freaky, wouldn't it?
It would.
Anyway, enough of your hairy relatives.
Sorry. Anyway, that's the teaser.
Yeah, it's not bad. There's a mystery.
No.
There is a mystery.
But it could have done without the last theorem bollocks.
The last theorem really does. Yeah, so embarrassing.
Yeah. So then, on the bridge, investigating, Wesley's found a structure. Go, Wes. So they're going to beam down, and O'Brien says, "Hang on a minute, gents. It's an extremely narrow access point," which I quite liked actually. Don't. Just because I like things where somebody has to do something, and it's not all automatic, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Easy.
He's using his skills.
Yeah. So they beam down, and there's a load of ammonia storms. Nice. And they are piss yellow.
Yeah. It's a planet of piss.
It is. So there's an antique revolving door in blackness, which they go through, because of course you do.
It kind of... It initially has a sort of feel like the Mind Robber. No, it's the blank set with a bit of strange innocuousness about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get as good as the Mind Robber, sadly, but...
No.
I mean, if they'd gone a lot more surreal...
It would have done.
It would have been a lot better, I think, yeah.
Yeah. So then they go in, and it's a casino. Woo-hoo. What is it with Star Trek and casinos?
I don't know, what is it in Star Trek and casinos?
Well, all that... Is it First Contact, when they're redoing that whatever it is, business?
Whatever it is.
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, that's all casino-ish. And then you've got Vic Fontaine's place, and there's casino tables there, and it's just like, oh, fuck off with the casinos. Yeah.
Well, of course, and then you've got the gambling stuff on Deep Space Nine as well, with the Ferengi running it.
Yeah, exactly.
Quarks. Double!
Yeah. What is it with this obsession with casinos? And they don't have any fucking money!
Well, at least in this occurrence, it doesn't matter because it's not the Federation.
No, I know, but even so.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder whether actually what it is actually they really wish they did have money. And then they go in, and Riker says there is no threat. Ha ha. Of course, the moment they go in, it makes you think of Hotel California. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the nightman. We are programmed to receive. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Man, come on, I had a rough night and I hate the fucking Eagles, man.
Oh, I noticed people smoking. Mm-hmm. How come they don't say anything? How come Worf doesn't say anything? How come Data doesn't say anything?
What about people smoking?
Yeah, bearing in mind that in Deep Space Nine, when the Ferengi go back in time, they talk about the Death Six, and if you can sell these people things that are going to kill you, you can sell them anything.
That was an excellent episode, wasn't it? Yeah. Anyway, let's focus on this one and not good episodes of Deep Space Nine.
Sorry, focusing on anything other than this episode seemed like a good idea at the time. It all seemed very holodeck-y to me.
Yes, it could easily have been a holodeck adventure, couldn't it?
Yeah. So then they come across these people playing blackjack, which I know as Pontoon. The dealer has an awful shirt. Data wins a 5-card trick. Now that Riker and the waiter have tried to leave through the door, but they can't because it's the Hotel California.
There is a stupidly long time before, because they realise they're out of communications, and rather than going, oh, obviously this building is blocking our communications, we should leave, Riker actually says, no, let's explore some more. Yeah. So, that's a bit stupid. In fact, Picard actually points out later on that Riker isn't following standard procedure.
No.
So, yeah.
And Troy says Riker is amused.
Riker is amused.
What
amused
gets me...
Riker is amused.
Right, but what gets me is, okay, if Troy knows how Riker's feeling that far away...
Exactly, in orbit.
Then that must mean that she knows how he's feeling and what he's feeling all the time.
Ooh, yeah, that could be embarrassing, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Aroused Riker is aroused.
Exactly! That's exactly what I was thinking.
Well, stop ogling those women. Yeah, she does have a sort of variable range for her empathic powers, and I suppose if you're going to try and make some defence, she obviously does have that extra connection with Riker, but even so, from orbit seems to be stretching it a bit.
Yeah, particularly through a whole load of interference that no one else can get anything through.
Yeah, the clouds of piss.
Yeah. Anyway... now they've tried to leave none of the holograms, clientele, whatever you want to call them, will acknowledge them, so they're not getting anywhere. Phasers won't work. They're trapped. Yeah, I guess that at the moment when they went through the revolving door.
Well, there had to be some jeopardy. I mean, that's part of the problem with this episode. There isn't really much jeopardy.
Not a lot.
They're stuck, but they're not stuck in a particularly bad place.
No.
Well, other than the characters are... I mean, on purpose, because it's all based on a book, isn't it?
Yeah.
So all the characters are badly written, and therefore... they're a bit irritating, particularly that dippy woman.
Yes. Anyway, the Enterprise gets through sort of just, and Riker says that they're trapped, but they're not in any immediate danger.
Which is the problem, basically, isn't
it?
Yeah, they should have been threatened every 5 minutes. That would have worked better.
They weren't. And then Data says he's got some human DNA. So my response is, ooh, they found Buck Rogers. So they go to the turbo lift, which is malfunctioning because they haven't pressed the up button. And oh no, they find that Buck Rogers has died.
No!
Apparently he
died. Gerard shagged himself to death.
Yes. And then Riker says he died in his sleep, and Worf says, what a terrible way to die.
That is a good line, isn't it? Very
yes.
Klingon, yeah.
And then they find his name badge, and it's Colonel S. Ritchie. And it was an attempt to go long distance in 2037, which is 50 years after Buck Rogers, but we can still say the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it was an attempt to travel further than they'd ever travelled before and whatever. And I'm just like, well, how come Data doesn't know this?
So do you think when he woke up he found that there were 3 very sexy women dancing all around him, a la the opening scene of the Buck Rogers movie? Damn it, I used to have that. Is that on the DVD set? I can't remember. Oh, I've got to dig out the Buck Rogers DVD
We have,
soon.
yes. Yes.
Biddy.
Yes. Anyway, it turns out that the novel Hotel Royale is what's happening. They thought that this awful novel was a guidebook. They refer to it as a badly written book. Well, it's a badly written episode. Data starts speed reading, and again, you just wonder, why couldn't he have accessed that information about the Colonel S. Ritchie? Why did they have to talk to the Enterprise for that?
Yes, he obviously doesn't have such a big data bank as the Enterprise does.
Anyway, Worf on the phone is immune.
Yeah, there's a classic moment where they're in that room and the phone rings and Worf answers and he's just so incredibly rude. What?
No.
Slightly lacking in his phone technique.
Yes.
Of course, you don't teach that at Starfleet.
No. And then they go downstairs and you get this Mickey D guy appearing in a very nice 80s suit. And the plot has it that the casino gets bought by some foreign investors, so they're now going to pretend to be the foreign investors in order to get out. There's one line that I like. Data's throwing the dice. Riker's asking him loads of questions, like about, well, you want to get this and you want to get that. And he's like, oh, but you've got 6, and that's not good. And he goes, well, yes, it might be good, or it might not. And then Riker's go, well, can you do it or can't you? And Data goes, there is a certain degree of random fortune involved. I believe that's why they call it gambling.
Yeah.
Which I like. But he discovers the dice are weighted, so he uses his extra strong hands to squish them. And then wins a lot.
I mean, that's kind of fun. Well, he's clearly having a lot of fun. The way he throws the dice. Yeah, that's quite good.
Yeah.
There's a vague sort of thrill in that.
Yeah.
Vague.
Ish.
It's the most fun you get out of this episode, really. Is Data throwing a couple of dice with style.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really. So anyway, and then they have to stay in character, so they bet everything even though they don't need to, so they can buy loads of stuff for other people. and then having won and said that they're the investors, they're then allowed to leave. And then later on, Riker says to Picard, none of it makes any sense. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're telling me. This was a pointless episode, like the other episode that you made me talk about last podcast. That's 42 minutes of my life I could have spent doing something.
You realise
else.
I've already penciled you in for Shades of Grey.
Fuck off.
What was the last one I got you talking about then?
The Dauphin.
Oh, yeah. No, really?
Yes.
Was that cruel?
Yes.
God, that was 2 weeks ago and I've forgotten already.
You have? I fucking haven't. You're doing Shades of Grey. Or you're doing that fucking podcast on your own.
Yeah. Sorry. The problem is we looked ahead at the next 2 episodes, and which fat fans are Times Squared and the Icarus Factor, and neither of us remembers that much about either of them, so it's going to be, a crapshoot, and maybe both of them will be shit, I'm not sure, but there we go. It's funny, I did remember this one being crapper than actually I found it. I got a bit more out of it this time around. And again, that may be just because I experienced the worst that Season 1 can offer, and therefore this seems a lot more reasonable in comparison.
Could be.
I mean, it could have done with being, basically, the plot such as it was, there wasn't enough of it, so it was way too much padding. Some very boring scenes on the Enterprise, where they're just staring at screens, and it's like they did that too often. So if they put some jeopardy into it somehow, some more action that actually threatens the away team rather than just meaning the away team can't get back again, it would have worked, I think. It needed another rewrite or two. Well,
actually, no. The problem was the rewrite. When Tracy Torme wrote the episode originally, it was a lot more comedic. It was a lot funnier. So even though the jeopardy wasn't there, it was a fun episode. It was a comedy episode.
Yeah, because I mean that Dallas or Texas character, what's he called? Texas Pete.
Yes.
Yeah, see, if it had been a Superted episode, it would have been far better.
This is a story about an ordinary teddy bear. When he was made, they found something wrong with him and threw him away like a piece of rubbish into an old dark storeroom. Then, from outer space, a spotty man brought him to life with his cosmic dust. He took him to a magic cloud where Mother Nature gave him special powers. That bear became Superted.
Data and Spotty Man could have got it on. Oh yeah! Or not. Imagine the noises John Pertwee would have made.
Now I'm thinking of a threesome of Data, Spotty Man and Tweaky. Biddy, 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 biddy.
Ooh, no! Yeah, it wasn't as good as Superted, sadly.
No.
So it was originally a lot more comedic, you
yes.
say? Well, okay, you can see that, because, the Texas character was obviously supposed to be... He didn't get so much screen time as I remember him having, and it was just a bit turgid.
And it was written beyond all recognition, so that Tracy Torme asked for a pseudonym to be used, and she was a staff writer, and she was so pissed off, she changed to creative consultant, and then shortly afterwards just led.
She did one more episode, didn't she? And that was it.
And then that was it, because she was so pissed off.
Mm.
And I think... as well, if she had had her episode improved by rewrites, she probably wouldn't have had the same response.
Yeah.
But it was a shit episode, so she didn't want it going out with her name on it, and they'd taken something that was better, and a load of other people said it was her version was better. This isn't just her having sour grapes.
So there we go. Bit of a disappointment. Or at least it would have been had we not already remembered that it was cack. In fact, I remembered it being cack, so therefore it wasn't so bad. But hey,
I just remembered it being the Hotel California, which it was. At least if they played the Eagles song, that would have improved it. I could have sung along.
Yeah, I guess so. Although that wouldn't have improved it for me, therefore.
Yeah, but you're owed suffering twice over now, aren't you? You've made me do the Dauphin, and you've made me do this one.
So have you got any ideas as to which episode I should be doing next time?
Shades of Grey! You've got to do Shades of Grey.
Later on, I will do Shades of Grey. Is that going to be my penance?
Yes.
Okay, mea culpa. But feel free to suggest one of them to us if you like that I should be doing
Yes.
to give Anne-Marie some... Because I say literally I don't remember much about either of those 2 episodes. Certainly not whether they were any good or not. So there we go. So in a fortnight's time, we shall return with Time Squared and the Icarus Factor. We'll get our paint sticks ready, I do remember that bit. And if you want to send any feedback on those episodes, or today's episodes, or about Star Trek generally, then you can contact us on Twitter. I'm at rev_org.
And I'm at ammo_purple.
Or you could go to the Geek Planet forums. We have our own little section. Or you could stick something on our Tumblr page. Or you could email me at revpeterorgan@yahoo.co.uk. And if that all sounds like gibberish, I'll put it all up on our Tumblr page. It's bOrgCast.tumblr.com. And you'll get all your facts there. Plus, I've stopped doing Spaceship of the Day now because I got updated on that. So we're up to date. So there'll be a couple more spaceships, but only tying into the relevant episodes.
So what totally unnecessary thing are you doing now?
Well, I've written a thing called Org's Waffle for today.
Right.
Which pretty much says it all. I don't know what I'm going to do about tomorrow. I think tomorrow it'll be the podcast, and I'll do something on the exciting IRW Hakona Matata.
What's IRW stand for then?
You know, I wish I knew. I'm going to have to check that out. So you can read about that on the Tumblr blog as well.
Right.
It's interesting that the other Geek Planet online podcasts are also getting Tumblr pages. I mean, the B5 one was the first one to go up, and Black Dog has joined in, and of course, Mr. Moon has had one for ages.
Yes,
he's a long time Tumblr. So it seems to be the thing of the moment. Although usually once I've got onto something, it's long past. But I'm surprised I haven't killed it yet. But it's kind of fun in a GIF-filled sort of way.
Or if you don't want anything that's as confusing as that, you can go to the forums or geekplanetonline.com, which are much more user-friendly.
Yeah. So there we go, folks. We'll catch you in a fortnight's time.
Okay, bye.
God bless. Bye. The bOrgCast is brought to you by geekplanetonline.com. Home of Geek Shinies. The Star Trek song at the opening of this podcast was written and performed by Adam Buxton and used by his kind permission.